4, Thinking Lecture 1.4, Collective Intelligence, the Hive Mind, and Microbial Consciousness. What is the context for these lectures? The hive mind is our context today. These lectures take place within it. You are invited to contemplate the idea that the lectures are not just the individual perspectives of a single professor, but are part of the expanding fabric of what the Greeks called the Great Conversation. The lectures are like the fruiting bodies of a vast underground rhizomal network, sprouting up like mushrooms to send out yet more spores to take root and join the other rhizomes in the fertile forest floor of our brain forest. Individual ants are mighty stupid, or so it seems, but the ant nest is a marvel at adaptive evolution. This appears true of all social insects, bees and termites too. The complexity of the behavior of the hive, its ability to collectively solve complex problems, is known as the hive mind and recognized as a form of collective intelligence. Dumb agents following somewhat simple algorithms exhibit extraordinarily complex behaviors. And what are brain cells, if not also dumb agents? Dissect a brain and query an individual neuron, and you won't get much in the way of thinking back. But connect all those neurons together, and you get not just a brain, but a mind that can think, and depending on its complexity, reason and create and communicate. Our own brains and their thinking byproducts are examples of collective intelligence. But we tend to forget that because we suffer from scale issues in our perception. We see our brains as individual units, indivisible units of consciousness, even though research into the mind-body relationship has shown that part of our intelligence resides in our extremities, and a large portion of it in our guts, and all of it is a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts phenomenon, made up of rather dumb parts, no matter what your gut intuition may tell you about your body being a mere receiver for an immortal soul. And speaking of those gut feelings of going with your gut, the latest research into the microbiome shows that in terms of sheer cell counts and sheer genomics, only about 10% of each of us is human, while the other 90% is microbial. So much of your intuition could actually be them speaking. Sound absurd? More and more research into the microbiome makes it seem ever more plausible that there might be a microbial consciousness, a kind of distributed intelligence whereby billions of microbes network together in your gut and body and brain, form their own collective hive mind that may or may not be in life-affirming and symbiotic dialogue with your own mind, depending partially on what you eat. And plausibly, now that we are learning about the microbial capability for lensing and quorum sensing, enabling, for example, certain fish organs to glow and synchronize patterns of light flashing at the right time during the right environmental circumstances, beneficial to the fish, made of bacteria, making the light, being key players in our evolution. And it isn't inconceivable that networks of microbial consciousness might extend out into the planet's watery arteries and soil veins, rhizomal pathways, and up into the clouds on blasts of tree leaf mediated vapor, creating a kind of internet cloud consciousness that might subtend the possibility of a Gaian world mind. None of this seems outlandish the more we study the concept of the swarm, of the hive, and begin to model it using the human-created Internet of Things and the cloud. The questions for you who are striving for sustainability and assumedly conflating the idea of sustaining human consciousness and its pleasures as priority one, with sustaining the ecosystems that sustain human consciousness as the necessary compromise priority of a selfish species, what exactly are you striving to sustain? Whose thinking are you thinking about? The thinking going on in your own conflicted brain? The thinking encoded in the logic of your family, your community, your religion, your region, your political party, your nation, your culture? The thinking of a broader political body, the United Nations and its Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs perhaps? Or are you trying to preserve Gaian consciousness or some spiritual consciousness, the mind of God? Or something as prosaic and yet arcane as a microbial mind controlling your gut feelings, moving you to eat and drink and poop and vomit and sweat and then die and decay so that it can continue to reproduce and evolve. Is that it? Are you merely the carrier species, the host for microbes that the deep ecologies suggest? Could you be nothing more than the fruiting body of a distributed consciousness, much as a mushroom is the reproductive fruiting body of a vast system of underground fungal microfilaments. Recent